Okay, let's get this show started here. Welcome to the Training Cafe. I'm going to start here officially in about 30 seconds. I just want to make sure our multiple feeds are up and running. Trying to get this to stream live on the Training for Climbing Instagram today, in addition to Facebook and YouTube. And here in the Training Cafe, we talk about climbing, training, all things related to performance, climbing, life kind of stuff. Because I'm a lifer, and I bet if you're tuning into this Training Cafe, you're probably a climber for life as well. And so let's get rolling with the Training Cafe. Hopefully you have a beverage. It's noontime here in the Eastern US where I am. So typically I'm sipping coffee during the Training Cafe. But today I just finished my morning workout. I've mixed up some weapons grade whey protein, the delicious strawberry blast, which is my beverage of choice for today. So, okay, I guess we will officially begin the show here. Welcome to the Training Cafe. I'm Eric Hörst coming at you live. I'm going to discuss, as I always do, a topic of the day, which I'll, instruct on or coach on for 10, 15, 20 minutes at most. And then the second part of the show, I'll answer viewer questions, which I invite you to type in right now or during the live stream into the comments box, and I'll get to them later on in the show. It can be on anything. It could be injury, nutrition, recovery, technique, mental training, physical training. These are all things that I've studied and coached on and personally learned and utilized myself as a climber of almost 50 years. So I am always happy to share my wisdom with you free of charge here on the Training Cafe. Now, before we get to the topic of the day, which I'm so excited to talk to you about this, I saw yesterday the IMAX film Girl Climber, which debuted here in the States, hopefully worldwide, yesterday. And it was wonderful. So I'm going to talk to you just a bit about that and share with you 5 powerful lessons that I took away from the film that I think Emily Harrington, the star of the film, exemplified beautifully in Girl Climber. And I hope you'll get to see the movie, preferably on a big screen, but if not, I'm sure it'll be available as a digital download in the very near future. It is a wonderful and inspiring film. I'll watch it again because I just enjoyed it that much. But before I get to that topic of the day, and then to your questions, we always sip or toast together, climbers around the world, because we have this shared passion we call climbing that transcends everything that maybe separates human beings here on Earth. Climbing is one of these things that universally brings people together. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I love sharing that at the crags, in my travels, and here in the Training Cafe, because climbers around the world unite here every other Monday when we do these Training Cafes. So if you've got a beverage, coffee, or in my case, whey protein, let's sip together. I'm happy to have workout number 1 of the day in the bag. Now it's time to do some work. This is work, among other things. And then this evening, I do my workout 2 of the day. And in case you're wondering, workout 1 was kind of more of a aerobic climbing specific workout. I kind of think of it as a bit of a recovery workout because it's about getting blood flowing and really focusing on the aerobic energy system. Workout 2 this evening will be more power endurance. So it's going to be more anaerobic focused. So there's a little insight into my training for the day. So let's move on here and get down to business here. And the business is the lessons I learned from Emily Harrington's Girl Climber movie. And first of all, this movie's been in the making for quite some time. I think 6 or 7 years from when it was kind of maybe born. The idea of a female free climb, first female free climb of Golden Gate on El Cap. So that alone's a pretty audacious goal because it's not been done before. But then to agree to be filmed and have cameras literally in your face during perhaps the hardest climb of your life, where you could, quite possibly fail at your endeavor. Uh, that takes, you need to be a brave person and really love climbing and embrace challenges to put yourself in that position. And Emily worked closely with John Glassberg, who's the genius behind Louder Than 11. He's been around a long time making short climbing films. This is the first like big movie I've seen him make. Maybe there's been others, I don't know, but John's obviously a talented dude, because this, in my opinion, held up to what Jimmy Chin did with Free Solo. And I posted on Instagram a little bit of a review last night where I said that Girl Climber is as good as Free Solo, but in a different way. It was a different kind of movie, telling a different story. The consequences were, of course, gravely different in Alex's endeavor, but Emily put herself out there too. Like I said, physically, mentally, spiritually, in trying to do something that had not been done before. And John Glassberg did a great job with his crew. Literally some camera shots like right in her face. I loved this sequence of her and the monster off width, where it was just like her face on the big screen, and you could just see, what it's like to be, just in that crack, I don't know, 2,000 feet off the ground. Some wonderful drone shots or aerial shots, giving you that big expanse and giving people a sense of the exposure of being on El Cap. And I've been up on that wall one time, and it's just breathtaking, to say the least. And so the film just does all of that, and it has a great story arc. And of course, Emily wins out. There's no spoiler, because it's been a few years, and it's been well known that she did send Golden Gate. But the process was long and rigorous, and challenged her in many, many ways. And so for her, to take this on, I kind of, what came to mind is Jim Collins, who's a climber of my generation, one of my heroes. He's a few years older than me, Colorado climber who went on to great success as a business consultant and author. He wrote a book called Good to Great. And one of the things that he popularized was the idea of behag, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay. And, people, rare individuals who, have in their mind and spirit to do uncommonly great and difficult things, embrace behag ideas. Elon Musk, for one, or the United States going to the moon. When President Kennedy said, we will send a man to the moon and bring him back alive by the end of the decade of the 60s. That was perhaps the ultimate behag. But Emily Harrington wanting to free climb the first, do the first female ascent of Golden Gate, and to do it in a day, nonetheless, under 24-hour ascent, 30 plus pitches. That is definitely a behag. And so the 5 powerful lessons that I took home from the movie are things that any of us could apply to our behags, whatever it might be. And it's not just in our climbing life, but in our life in general, because we have big goals, many of us outside of the climbing world, that we really put ourselves out there and put our heart and soul into. And so they're every bit as much a behag and a goal that you have to buy into and commit fully to even have a chance. Because the one thing about a behag is success is not guaranteed, because if it was, it wouldn't be a behag. So Emily and John Glassberg documented this process quite well. And so let me give you the 5 take-home lessons that I took away from the movie. And number one is, when you commit to a goal and dive in fully, you have to recognize that you have to be in to it, or be committed to it for the long haul. Because again, it's not a behag if it's a goal you can achieve in a week or a month. something that you just know you're going to do it. That's not a BHAG. But Emily picked a goal which was, something that had not been done before. So I guess that right there qualifies it as a BHAG if you're the first person in the world to do it. Hey, and by the way, Emily Harrington knows something about that concept because, and I've written about this and talked about this in over the last few years a number of times. But one thing I love about Emily Harrington, the climber, is that she's not a one-trick pony. She has excelled in multiple disciplines. She was a champion competition climber when she was young. She has climbed 514, numerous 514s. She's freed big walls, and she climbed Mount Everest. There's no man that has done those things. So Emily's a true one of a kind. And so when she sets a BHAG goal, you better take it seriously. The critics better keep their mouths shut because people like that, kind of the Elon Musk spirit is not infallible and certainly can fail and will fail because that's part of embracing multiple big projects. But those type of individuals seem to be able to dig deep enough and stay committed long enough to get the goal done. So take home lesson number one is you need to be in and committed to staying with and working towards and persevering and overcoming adversity for months, perhaps years. Dawn Wall, Tommy Caldwell, Kevin Jorgensen, that is definitely a BHAG, and he, I think, spent 7 years doing that. Emily's case, I don't know when she first went on to Golden Gate to kind of check it out and work it the first time, maybe 2018, I'm not sure. I believe she did it in 2020 or 2021. The calendar kind of got mixed up in my head last night after the movie, but it was a multi-year process for her, for sure, that she needed to stay committed and stay in the game. It's very easy when you have a project that takes that long to give up along the way. There's plenty of opportunity, and she had those opportunities, but of course she did not succumb to that. Okay, lesson number 2 when it comes to what it takes to achieve a BHAG, and that's that you need to train for and embrace mentally and physically a bruising process. And you'll see that in the movie. She literally, in multiple instances, was bruised and beaten by the route and by the process of working and climbing the route. But again, Emily's not a stranger to pain and suffering. In fact, again, alpine climbing is a lot of pain and suffering. Climbing Mount Everest for sure. Big wall climbing, I often joke because I have a lot of friends who are big wall specialists, and I joke that the average person sues for pain and suffering. They get in a car accident and sue the person that hit them for pain and suffering. Big wall climbers, they just go out and seek pain and suffering. And they spend money to go and have pain and suffering on a big wall. And so lesson number 2 is, you need to train for, and that is something that you need to start training for many, many years to accumulate kind of what I call a callus, a physical and mental callus that allows you to, just survive or push on through the pain and suffering of a climbing endeavor. And so, and again, I've written in my book, Maximum Climbing, about Tommy Caldwell. He's had many adversities along the way. He's logged thousands of hours of training. His training in the past has been legendary, what he would put his body through, not just climbing specific training, but just, long days. Alex Honnold, lots of long days, hundreds, thousands of hours of climbing and hiking and, climbing in the dark and all of these things that just stress the body and really, most importantly, recalibrate the brain. This black box in our brain, the central governor that makes us stop when we're exhausted, physically or mentally exhausted, that black box gets recalibrated through exposure to progressively higher amounts of pain and suffering, things that require mental and physical stamina. And so that's something that you need to accumulate to do a big wall like Emily just did. You need to accumulate that over many, many years, perhaps even decades. So that's something that a lot of young climbers in their teens and 20s are in that process now of accumulating that experience, recalibrating that black box in their brain to set them up, give them what it takes to, in their 30s and 40s, do amazing things. Emily did this route, I think, at age 32. Climbers, of course, can do great things into their 40s and 50s, and I'm still hanging in there at 60. So, it's a long journey and something you can continue to accumulate experience and, that callus that I talked about that allows you to persevere through pain and suffering. That is really, really critical. Okay, so that was lesson number 2. Lesson number 3 is you will face adversity. If you set a BHAG, something that's going to take you seasons or years to achieve, there's going to be adversity and plenty of opportunity to bail out along the way. And again, you'll see in the Girl Climber film, Emily had those opportunities where she probably had doubts, and it would have been so much easier to give up the dream and to quit. But of course, she did not. So again, that's something that, to some degree, that mentality, I think you learn in your childhood, maybe the way you were raised or what you were subjected to. People like Emily Harrington and Tommy Caldwell, certainly as young climbers, being in the competition scene, but also as outdoor climbers, had bouts of adversity and, that helped, were kind of the crucible that forged who they became many years later. And so, again, in Girl Climber, you'll see that just in the process of climbing the wall, her multiple attempts to free climb Golden Gate, there was a fall where she hurt herself badly, a 40-foot fall in the dark that could have been a deadly fall. Thankfully, it wasn't, and she was able to return months later to resume her mission. And then even on the day that she sent the route, she took a bad fall that easily she could have pulled the plug when that happened. And so being able to persevere through adversity is lesson number 3. It's a skill that is gradually developed over many years of facing adversity, probably losing in some of those matches with adversity, and also winning and learning that you can win over adversity sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Lesson number 4, and this is a big one for sure, and it was exemplified in her movie, the Free Solo movie about Alex Honnold, very much showed this as well, is that even though climbing is an individual sport, it still takes a team. And Emily built a support team, and any of us who set a BHAG goal in climbing or in life, it really helps a lot. It's, I think, essential to have some kind of a support team, spiritually, but also physically. In Emily's case, she had partners that were willing to go up and work the route with her and belay her, and be there through multiple attempts over multiple seasons. Her boyfriend, now husband, Adrian, obviously was a critical piece of support. And for pro climbers, the sponsorship is important as well, because to be able to fully commit to training and to climbing, it needs to be your job. You can't, it's really tough for someone to have a 40-hour-a-week job and try to be a pro climber year round. There are folks who have kind of done it and done amazing things, but the rock stars that we know, again, the Alex Honnold's, the Tommy Caldwell's, the Alex Megoses, the Lynn Hills, the Emily Harringtons, they're sponsored athletes. Their job is to climb. And so they're getting a paycheck, might not be big, but they're getting something to live on and help support their mission. And so the sponsors are part of that support system. But I think the biggest in Emily's case, just from watching the movie, and I know them a little bit, not well, but I've been around them in climbing situations. And Adrian's a wonderful dude and was a great support. And I think my favorite moment in the film was on her send go towards the end of the film, when it seemed like everything was lining up to do the route. She took a bad fall, I don't know, 30, 40-foot fall in a corner, and took a, track climbing, you can take weird falls and get hurt. And she hit her head and was bleeding. And, my wife and I were talking to each other. She must have had a concussion, because it looked like her head really hit the wall hard. And, when she got lowered down to the ledge and she was bleeding and crying, and she's like, it's not going to happen. I mean, it was for a moment, probably more than a moment, she thought it was done. But Adrian said, "You're going to do it today." And so her partner and, spouse helped her in that moment to push on. And she did. She regrouped. She sent. Amazing, amazing moment. So touching. Okay, and let's move on to number 5, the final lesson from the movie. And the most important is, you must believe in the end game. I don't care who you are, what your goal is. If you don't have 100% belief deep down that it's attainable, that it's doable, that you have what it takes, if you commit fully and stay in the game, if you don't have that level of belief, big things can't happen. And this is where some people do get shut down, because they may have that belief, a very strong belief in themselves, but then they hear their critics and the naysayers out there. And Emily, in the movie, said that she had some people like that were saying that they don't give her a high chance of doing the route. That can get in your head, obviously, and especially in the social media era, where faceless people can leave comments and say nasty things. It's easy to, as an athlete, for sure, if you're a professional athlete, NFL player or whatnot, the critics can just destroy you if you let them. And so you need to drown them out or tune them out. Turn off your social media, and get away from the naysayers. Don't give them your time or attention, and instead focus on the people that believe in you, and internalize that and use it to build a deeper belief in yourself. That is really what it takes to be successful at anything. And I think that's one of the things that is so important for younger people, raising 2 sons who are now in their 20s, but when they were teenage athletes, is giving them that belief system and teaching them that really there's 2 types of people in the world. There's doers and there's critics. And doers and critics, it's a mutually exclusive trait. So if you hear, if there's a person talking shit, being critical about you or anyone for that matter, that shows really who they are, what their character is. And you should not be hanging around people like that. And so you want to seek out the doers of the world and be around those people, whether it's at the gym, the crag, or just in your everyday life, because that empowers you. If you surround yourself with strong-minded, strong-willed doers that think out of the box and have audacious goals, and they're idea people and big thinkers and mission oriented people. I love that. When people reach out to me and have a mission, I want to support that. And again, when you run into the critics of the world, get away from them quickly before they drag you down, because it is toxic, and it can spread like a disease if you're around it a lot. And so again, I think, Emily surrounded herself with people who helped her build a stronger belief along the way. And she had Adrian there in that critical moment to help her recognize that the game wasn't over that day when she took the fall and hit her head, but she just needed to regroup, and she still had physically what it took to get it done that day before the 24-hour clock ran out. And it was a beautiful thing to observe. And so thank you to John Glassberg for making the film, and obviously thank you to Emily Harrington for getting it done and showing us by example these wonderful lessons that I just outlined here. And so I've actually talked for 25 minutes, a bit longer than I promised. So I'll wrap up the topic of the day now and move on to just a few training questions, because I have a busy day, busy week. Had a unfortunate passing of a family member that is going to be buried tomorrow. And so I need to regroup myself and stay focused on important things. But, Training Cafe is an important thing, and talking to you is an important thing as well. So let's just answer a couple of questions, and we'll get wrap up the show here. And I guess I see Peter and James left a couple of comments there. I appreciate your thoughts, you guys. And I guess one question I've heard just in the last few days, it's August here, well, everywhere. I guess it's August, but here in Pennsylvania, what I was going to say is it's extremely hot and humid. I'm in training mode here for the next month before I head to the Red River Gorge for the autumn season. And these hot, humid days, you got for a run, or you got climbing, or do anything outdoors, you mow the grass, you're going to lose a lot of liquid and potentially a lot of electrolytes as well. And so little things, can make a big difference. And if you're climbing or training or doing anything in the hot, humid conditions this time of year, it's a good reminder to not only drink a lot of water, but to also get some electrolytes into your system. Now, if you're someone who naturally consumes a salty diet, which if you're someone who consumes a lot of processed foods, whether it's potato chips or any, most processed foods, canned foods are just laden with salt, actually more salt than you actually probably need, even as an athlete who perspires a lot. So, if that's you, then maybe electrolyte isn't necessarily what you need. But if you eat a clean diet without added salt much, then you probably can benefit from an electrolyte powder in terms of hydration. Muscle function, very, very critical to have the electrolytes balanced just right. A lot of people actually get too much salt, and so potassium actually becomes the mineral that you can be deficient on. So eating potassium-rich foods like bananas can be helpful, but also some good electrolyte powders have quite a bit of potassium. PhysiVantage Flow, which is what I use, has actually more potassium than sodium, because of the idea that we get a lot of sodium in our food, but not so much potassium. And I believe more climbers that I've worked with are more potassium deficient than they are sodium. And so having a electrolyte with a fair amount of potassium is quite important. And also getting magnesium, which is something that like 80% of the population is deficient on, magnesium. I take a magnesium supplement every morning and evening, but also a good electrolyte powder will have some magnesium in there as well. And so when you're sweating a lot, of course you want to drink a lot, but also electrolyte replacement might be beneficial for you as well. When it comes to training, a lot of people are asking me about getting ready for the autumn season. The autumn season, well, it could begin Labor Day weekend here for folks that live up north, where it's cooler. If you're in Montana or maybe in Wyoming or the mountains of Colorado, this could be the start of your autumn climbing season. The leaves may be beginning to change in the next week or so. And so you should be kind of peaking and maybe even doing a deload ahead of uh, Labor Day weekend's just 1 week down the road, right? So, you might want to be looking at the week ahead as a deload period before a big climbing weekend or the start of your autumn climbing season. For me, my autumn climbing season, living in a very warm, muggy climate, and it's going to stay that way typically for at least another month or so. I look at October and November as my autumn climbing season, whether I'm at the New River Gorge or this season, I'm going to spend much of the autumn season at the Red River Gorge. And so for hard climbing, even late October, November, and to early December can be optimal. Though I don't like it super cold like some of the pros do. So I'm going to head down right around October 1st. And therefore, I still have 4 weeks of training mode left. And I'm trying to, make that progression from more endurance to power endurance training here over the next few weeks to get my lactic system up to snuff. I'm also increasing my running mileage the past few weeks. I ran 5 miles each of, 3 of the last 4 days. So for me, that's quite a bit of running, and I will taper back on that once I get down to the red. I'll just do a couple of runs a week. But right now, I'm also kind of working on that generalized aerobic energy system and trying to lose a few pounds of body fat. I'm not hugely overweight, but when you want to peak in a strength to weight ratio sport, you want to optimize body composition. And I definitely have some room to optimize body composition. And so, being able to lose maybe a pound a week for the next 4 weeks can be a real difference maker for me heading into the autumn sun season. So you should just kind of consider what your autumn season looks like and, plan ahead. Just as, the BHAG goals, you need to plan many seasons or years in advance to kind of have a sense of how this journey could play out and then be able to course correct along the way. Training is that way, but on a much shorter time frame. Typically I program training blocks anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. And so, that's kind of the arc of a training block, 6 to 12 weeks. And then after 12 weeks, or after the end of that period, whatever it is, you kind of have a deload, and then you are presumably peaking physiologically for performance climbing soon after that. So you need to kind of look at your calendar. What are your climbing plans this autumn season? And then how should your training be dialed in and kind of scheduled from now till then? Let's see what Peter typed in here. Not specifically a training question as such, just to say I started my 8 weeks training schedule for my Kalymnos trip in October. And he says, thanks for the advice in the last cafe. Yeah. Well, first of all, have a great trip to Kalymnos. I love that place and hope to get back there next spring. He's talking about, I think the last episode of Training Cafe might have been 3 weeks ago now. I did the topic of the day on kind of an 8 weeks out concept, kind of counting down to when your performance season or when a big trip occurs and how to fine tune your climbing. So again, if you want to learn more about that and what my thoughts are, go back and check out the last Training Cafe. As a final remark here, this is episode 88. I started the Training Cafe several years ago. Actually, back in the COVID era is when we were locked down at home that this idea was born to stay connected to people when we couldn't connect with people physically because of the COVID restrictions. And I've been trying to do these once or twice a month since then. And there's some gaps here and there. When I'm traveling, it's tougher to do these than when I'm at home in work mode. But there's quite an archive. If you go to the Training for Climbing YouTube channel, there's quite an archive, 88, I guess, episodes of Training Cafe. And you can scroll through and look at the topics of the day and find some good things to drill down into and see, what might be able to help you overcome a training hurdle or, a performance plateau or some other issue that you're dealing with, injury, lack of time to train, life gets in the way kind of stuff. I've faced all of that in my long climbing career. And so I'm always trying to share that wisdom with you now. So I guess we'll wrap it up here. We got almost 35 minutes in the bag. So that's a pretty good training cafe. Thank you so much for joining me again. We toast to climbing, our shared love for climbing. And this time we also toast to Emily Harrington for sending Golden Gate, and a wonderful movie directed by John Glassberg. So congrats to everybody. Have a good day. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.